What's up, guys? It is that pin again. I'm here again with another video, and today we are doing a bracket review. I know it's been a while since I've done one of those. And to be honest, I don't really have too much to say as I'm gonna go through this, but we are in G2. We don't normally play Apex. You guys might know that, right? We tend to not dabble here. But I actually have a funny story for this, by the way, guys. So we had a really hard island raid. I had been considering going to Apex, especially since we had a joiner. We had a joiner for the event, which was Mo's Avatar, and we had what's it called, MX6, right? Really strong players. Um, but we did try to drop last minute, and this was probably my fault. We probably could have avoided it if I had planned this in advance. But I was like, oh, we're so low on resources because we had taken a 3v1 fight mid, and it was super exhausting. I'm probably going to have to raid my fillers in the alliance to get a bunch of resources so we're able to do what we need to for this AR because I do not want to be dead weight to such an amazing Legion, okay? But yeah, we did try to drop. I failed literally at rank 100 by 10 million might. Oh my gosh, so embarrassing, right? But yeah, it's okay. I don't really mind going to Apex either way. I actually wanted to go Apex for this one, but at the same time, I was like, dude, we're so low on resources. We might be dead weight, but we're gonna make what happen. Whatever we can happen, you know. My alliance is honestly pretty. I wouldn't say we're going to be like the deciding factor here, but I do think we're going to have a pretty good impact. Big Daddy's pretty strong. I'm pretty strong. Saint's really strong. Mose is pretty strong. Honestly, even MSR is decently strong though for a D checks level fight, and not really, I guess. You have Doctor Death really strong. MX6 really strong. We got at least like rally captain level players here who are able to kind of contribute their end. But I will get into that as we actually go through our bracket, and we'll talk about that. Sorry, freaking tabbed. But let's start with G1 really quickly. We will just cover this really quickly before I go to my bracket. So we do have Golden here, which is Omes B. We've actually fought Omes B quite a few times. I say quite a few, but it was only two back to back, and they were honestly one of our best elite enemies that we fought so far. In terms of a singular alliance, they've probably given us the. It's hard to say, right? Because in general, as a singular alliance, they've probably given us some of the best field fights we've ever had. But I had just fought Moppy, but it was also a 3v1, so it's a bit hard to say because we were kind of fighting on a lot of fronts and we were able to only fight those guys. I would say they're pretty close though. But OMSB does have an insane spread on like workshop level players and stuff. Really strong team though. So when it comes to rallies, I do think these guys are going to be a pretty contributing factor. Then you got SSI here. SSI, you know, I think it goes without explaining how strong SSI is. They are just, you know, kind of monstrous. They did get the bad end of the stick with NKY. It's an alliance with I don't think a single 200 million might player. Yeah, that's just you know, like. But I will say, you know, ultimately you only need three alliances as long as you have the three to send rallies. It's good enough, right? And HOD 1 does have vanilla, and I'm pretty sure some of these other 300 mil guys are pretty stacked. So overall, Golden is set up in a pretty good spot here with rally captains and whatnot. And normally SSI is overwhelmingly the strongest team, but this time I do believe that UOD had a merger. If I'm not wrong, yeah, they have, you know, freaking 33 billion might. I think SSI was just first by like around a billion might, maybe a little bit less. So it is going to be kind of close in that regard. I will say in terms of Jade though, I am a little bit concerned for for UOD because FLW does have rally captains, right? You know, they have some pretty strong guys. I believe that MKRC does, but when you look at it, if you're looking at paper at least, right, I don't think the rally captains are on the same degree as Golden side alliances like HOD or OMSB. Just from what I've experienced, because I know OMSB has at least two players, for example, with full 20s over their workshop. HOD 1 obviously has Vanilla, who's clearly over that. LV74. I'm not as sure about how strong their top players are, you know what I mean? So I can't really say on that, but in general, it does look like Jade is kind of fighting at a loss here in terms of rally captains. If they can control the field, maybe that'll change a bit. But even field, I feel like that's going to be more of an issue, right? I do think, like, I don't know. I just have more experience with these teams, so I also could be a bit biased. I probably am biased, right? But yeah, overall, it does look like Golden is coming out as the stronger Legion in general. But as for side legions, I don't really have too much say here. To be fair, I'm not really probably going to be dropping into these too much. I'm not trying to make this an overly complicated video, which it probably already sounds like since I'm already 5 minutes in. But you do have Oldie, which is mainly going to be reliant on Mooseman here. He does have the rallies and garrisons, so there's that. You have NM49, and NM49 is pretty stacked. Having Coco Bongo as well, that is never easy to fight against, and having that on a side legion is pretty crucial. So whoever can get Azure is honestly setting themselves up for a pretty good fight here. MDMG does have Ryu. I know he's a pretty strong guy. And honestly, it's not even necessary to look at Arc 1, but we will look at Arc 1. They are just kind of going to be probably a filler team here. But they do have their 3 rally captains that they need on Azure, so Azure's set up in a pretty good spot. And then you look at, what's it called, Crimson, and you do have X-War. You know, I don't think they have, like, the Mega Whale power that they would need in comparison to, you know, Azure. You have Sith, which does have some, I think this is top 1 players, but it's, I don't know, it feels kind of small. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I guess you do just need the rally captain, but it just feels like, Crimson got the bad end of the stick. But I do also want to say, I kind of get my, evaluations on legions, and half the time I'm actually wrong, right? Like last Archipelago raid, I was looking at G1 and I believe I saw like 4 KO. I saw all these extremely strong alliances on one legion, and then you looked at Crimson, right? And you had Boone, and Boone is great, but Boone was alone basically, and somehow. And to be fair, they did end up losing nonetheless, but somehow these guys held up mid for, like, let's say half a day compared to Azure, who was significantly stronger on whale power whale teams, who folded behind their checkpoint within the first few hours. And it's because Samuel was holding all towers, but that's not the only reason, right? I think it's kind of underestimated that maybe sometimes having a ton of whale teams isn't an advantage in some regards, right? Because I do think that they're more savvy to, hey, if we hold out these towers at mid, we're going to maybe get broken a lot easier, or whatever the case, right? Or sorry, not broken. We're going to get a lot more losses, and we're not willing to take that. Whereas I think smaller teams are like, hey, we're more willing to maybe throw our troops away. We're more willing to have this Valhalla sacrifice for an epic victory or an epic fight, right? Whereas I think a lot more big teams kind of play it smarter, especially when you're on a side legion, because generally when you're in G1 and you're on a side legion, even Crimson in this case was taking a pretty big beating on these towers, I believe, but they still were holding, like, their lives were on the line, and you can respect it, but ultimately the other team folded, who was clearly much stronger, if you had asked me, right? They had a better spread of garrisons. They weren't reliant on one player holding every single tower. It was just crazy to me, okay? But let's get into G2. G2, we do have My Legion and we have Jade. So we'll go on to My Legion first. We are prime here. We did register at like 4 billion something might. We do have actually a good spread of whales with Big D, Dr. Death, Moze. I forgot to mention Moze. And I am actually entrusted, so that's nice, because if we do need rallies, I will probably be very active. Saint. These are actually really big builds. They might not look like it if you just look at their kills, but to be honest, like, these guys are monsters, bro. I can't believe they had the biggest sleeper builds ever. But we do have a good rally spread, so in terms of having a rally up, at the very least, if we need one, we always have Moze here, and he's probably always going to be active, so that's good. We have HMB, which does have Whiskey. They have the Hans account, or the Hans account, which did end up selling. But from what I understand, he is going to be active. And they have a pretty good spread of whales as well, right? Like, Watson is a really nasty infantry. I don't know how strong Buck is. I just know he's, pretty beefy. You have Catastrophe. You have Wall. I mean, these are like, a few of these guys are about like 100 million AOD, right? Like, this is a really good spread. Especially if we want to do multi-tower rallies, which I do notice that in G, like, 1, 2, they tend to really hard focus 1, which I understand why. Maybe it's field. You don't want to get your rallies swarmed out. But sometimes I do think it kind of calls for spreading out rallies. Though I will say, in terms of side legions, we might end up actually having to spread on top and bottom side for fights. So this could actually be more beneficial for us, having as many rally captains spread out between alliances as we do, because we do actually have the capability to probably set up 3 or even 4 rallies. And I say this right because HMB or not HMB, sorry, 59E is honestly really jacked when it comes to rally captains themselves. Far more jacked than us, so it's a really good spot. I know these guys are really hard fighters, so we can rely on them to be very active up mid. I've never seen these guys really log off during a mid fight, so I'm pretty happy about that. And we do have Lisa, so we'll see about Sohan and stuff. Honestly, I don't know about like Lisa's rally capabilities. I do believe if they're on a good legion, at least we might have like fillers here. I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't really know what to expect from Lisa. I kind of always am like, uh, when I see Lisa in legions, it's kind of weird to me. I don't really know how active they show up. I just know for like Island Raid, I don't usually see their see them kind of like tower fighting much. So hard to say. But we will jump into Jade. So Jade does have DHX. DHX did register at 23 billion, I believe, and 59E was much lower, as you see there at like 19 billion. So there is that disadvantage in like might, but as long as the Legion can make up for it, I guess it doesn't matter, right? But you know, they do have the infamous Save Me. Save Me is, you know, still a beast, so this is going to be pretty hard for us to run through. They have Cassandra, Daniely. You know, these are all 100 mil plus build players like Cyro, whatnot. These are all really stacked players. So, I mean, DHX alone isn't going to be easy to topple. You do have Wowie though. I do believe they actually have like the whale capability to set other rallies. Though I do think in general, in comparison to Golden, this is on a much lower scale. Whereas like you got people with like 100 mil plus AOD builds. I don't believe Wowie has that same capability, so hopefully we are at an advantage in this regard. So our, you know, defense capabilities are better. And then you do have 380 here. I know that their whale is actually pretty strong, so I don't even know like what his like how cracked his workshop build is and stuff, so I can't really comment. But as long as he's active for mid fights, that's gonna be a little bit annoying. But then you also have TOA. They don't really have the rally capabilities here. I do think in comparison to Jade, we are better off, at least in terms of rally captains. Maybe the hardest part will be like taking on rallies just because of Save Me, as long as they can control the field. But I don't think we're going to be getting completely overwhelmed on field control. So this is actually going to be a really tough fight. But I do think in terms of rally capabilities, we are far at the advantage here. So we're going to really see on that. But let's go into the top and bottom Legion. So we have Crimson here, and I believe that we allied Crimson, and it looks like Jade is going to ally Azure. We have DDAV on the top Legion, which, you know, they do have their fair share of wells. You have MXO. I know they also have their fair share of wells. One being Apather, which is the Sackjur account. This is all. By the way, I know I'm going to constantly mention Arena of Doom might, but I do think it's a pretty good indicator of how strong a person is. If you're over 100 million might in AOD, you're pretty damn strong, right? You're able to send rallies in G1 or G2 pretty confidently and still be able to perform just fine, right? In this case, Apather is definitely over 100 mil in AOD. I believe Doomboy should be pretty strong. I know Fap is about probably 100 mil in AOD as well. So in terms of rally captains, they at least have the two rally captains. And they obviously have DDAV as well. I do think that that might be where it ends though. Or they do have GGD. Okay, they do have GGD. As long as this guy can be active, that's at least 3 rallies. Though we'll say, to be fair, when you're a side legion, sending rallies generally isn't what you're doing. You're generally actually on the defensive. So I'd say like more or less they have more garrison capabilities than rally capabilities, right? As long as these guys can hold out longer than maybe Azure is able to hold out, they're kind of in a better spot. But I will say this also comes down to the same situation where Jade is much more limited on same level rally captains. And I might sound like a dickhead, right? It's just kind of like I'm pretty blunt about how I explain stuff, but I don't think Wowie can like measure up, for example, right? Like their top whale probably can't measure up to Mo as a whale, right? Like this guy is a monster. And then you also have the same kind of circumstances with HMB and 59E. We have the people that we need. And when it comes to Jade pushing back Crimson faster than we can push back Azure, I don't see that being the case, right? Because we just have, like I said, the better rally spread for the situation. It would be kind of better actually if Jade just kind of defends over here and actually tries to hard focus us to pull us off of Azure. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's kind of how I would think about it. But let's get into Azure as a whole. So you have top one, and top one actually has a pretty decent whale spread, as you see here. They have a pretty good whale spread in this alliance, but I will say, as a legion as a whole, I think it's much worse off. Right? You have Waza here. We'll look at Waza real quick. Not really G2 worthy, right? Like, I don't mean to say G2 worthy, but you guys get what I mean, right? Like they don't have the capability to kind of throw their head above water. You do have Axa here, by the way, and Axa is actually pretty strong. They got actually some pretty good rally captains. I'll give them that. So in terms of like being able to kind of keep their head above water in G2, I do think that they'd be able to at least send like a pretty good second rally. And then you do have these guys, DK33. I will say I do think they have at least 3 rallies, but I mean, and like I said, I don't think like side legions really matter as much for rallies. It's more like a whole thing, and this is what I hate being on a side legion. When I went into Apex, this is the reason I never want to go into Apex. It's because I never want to be on a side legion, because realistically, these side legions are specifically there to take a beating, to draw attention away from the main legions and give them time, right? And as a result, you're probably almost never trading really well in towers. Maybe that's going to be a little bit different because you do have Apather in this Legion to hold a tower down. But nonetheless, I mean, when you're getting rallied out and swarmed by someone like Save Me, it's still pretty hard to trade relatively well. So I guess we're actually going to just see on that. I'm not really sure how well that's going to turn out, but we'll see, okay? I am pretty confident in this Archipelago raid, though. I'm not sure if we'll win, but I honestly do think that we have the advantage kind of going into mid. I'm not so sure as about allies because Azure's pretty strong, Crimson's pretty strong. Overall, hard to say, but I do think that we, as a like rally spread ability here, are just at a far better advantage. I will also mention real quick that DHX did fight ROK pretty hard, so in terms of exhaustion, they might be somewhat exhausted. I'm sure they'll be able to still give a hard fight, but in like comparison to 59E, I'm sure they're much more exhausted than 59E is from their island raid. Although I will also say, on the other hand, we ourselves are very exhausted. We did have a really tough island raid, so I'm gonna have to be running through my prime fillers, raiding some of them to make sure we have the resources to do these mid fights for zombies and stuff. So we'll really see on that. And to continue with G3, we'll probably stop at G3. I don't want this video to be too long. I feel like I'm a big rambler. But we do actually have 5 alliances per legion, which is a bit different than what we're getting in G1 and 2, because I think G1 was also 4 alliances. Correcto? Yeah, correct. But yeah, let's go to G3 real quick. You do have MXC, MXC pretty stacked. You got NTD, and as long as they have their RZ guy, yeah, they have RZ. As long as they have RZ, man, they can send a damn rally, okay? But you have MXC here. MXC, pretty damn stacked, 24/7. Though I'm not really sure. I've never, and this is one alliance I haven't this is one bracket I haven't previewed yet, so I am going to be going through the alliances a bit. I'm not so sure about their Legion, to be honest. I don't think that like NWR is going to be able to send like I mean, like, for example, right? I say this so much and I sound mean, but I don't think they'll be able to send a good rally, right? Let's say their top guy maybe is like 70 mil in AOD, and the average guy you need to be sending a rally is 90 to 100 in AOD. Yeah, that guy's strong, but it's not G3 strong, right? That's like kind of the issue you generally face with these kind of brackets. That will say, obviously, this bracket is kind of on the lower scale, so I don't really think it's going to be to the same degree. I mean, you do have LL67 here, and although LL67 isn't really all that talked about, they are still pretty jacked. It does look like their top whales are kind of out of the alliance at the moment, though. I feel like they're a bit weaker than they normally are, if I am not wrong. Like, are they in like rank 1? Okay, yeah, never mind. I was wrong. I was wrong. So yeah, they do have the garrison capabilities. I would say like a multi-tower game would maybe be the biggest concern here. Though I guess you could also say the same about Golden, but MXC probably has more garrison capabilities than I would argue with like LL67 and this Legion as a whole. You do have IWRI though, which has GG. Pretty nasty monster. I actually kind of underestimated this Legion for a second. I forgot that IWRI is really stacked. DNT has Tony, so this is at least 3 rallies from this side. Even, I mean, dude, DFN, I mean, Frog's actually pretty strong, though. I mean, as long as you have, like, as long as you have these bottom three alliances, that's all you need, right? The other two, all they need to do is field, and they need to fill, and that's good enough. Golden, I would say, in terms of rally captains, are probably at a disadvantage. I know that I know that Billy's actually a pretty strong infantry, but honestly, considering how meta range is right now, I'm not sure how good infantry is. I will say I've seen pretty good tanks, such as Claude, right, with Stella, and those performing extremely well, especially when paired with two rider rallies or something that can go shred the garrison. So, I mean, as long as he's able to maybe tank for that, or even just, NWR having a really good rider rally or something, this could turn out really well. But in general, I do think that Jade is at a far bigger advantage in terms of rally captains, and really that's what really usually matters, right? As long as these teams can kind of go crazy on the field, and hold their own and kind of just back and forth it, if a team's able to go harder on rally captain capabilities or whatever, it's just too much of an advantage, right? And you do have Fib here, by the way. We're gonna look at the bottom and top legion real quick before we get out of here. But Fib has Z the monster. They do actually have a pretty good spread in whale power right here. You have Skro, you have Nom Nom, you have ABZ. I mean, these are all really good rally and garrison captains just in general, right? Like, if you know Fib, you know Fib. And even Z, the infantry garrison god, he's actually traded really well against top teams in general. When he had to fight in G1 against SSI, he was actually holding that tower really well. I saw the trades on it. So, I like, depending on who he allies, I mean, even if they ally, like, against Jade, I think that they'll be able to somewhat hold. I don't think they're going to be able to Titan fight up mid or anything, but I do think they'll be able to at least probably stall really well. But that also depends on how good Crimson's able to fight. I mean, they have VWAO, which has Farmer, Tiger, a lot of pretty big beasts here. I don't know, though. I don't know if Blaze, okay, but yeah, Blaze is in VIP right now. Gold, I've never seen this team, to be honest. I never really see this team. They had the highest rating on their Legion, which kind of surprised me, but then I expected to see like a 400 million whale here. But yeah, I don't know. I will say, like, in terms of rally captains and stuff, this is not enough to beat out a main Legion. I do think that these guys are kind of in the biggest struggle. I know Red Mango's pretty strong. So, I mean, at the very least, I do think these guys do have like 3 rally captains. But, no, NWAF, do they not have their main whales right now? Okay, I guess not. Normally, they are more stacked than this. So, it does look like it's going to be 2 alliances kind of carrying Azure. Hopefully, these other teams are really good at filling as well. Crimson, I'd argue, are better off, right? I know that this Mad Max guy is relatively strong. I don't know. I don't think it's, and I said this last time, right? But realistically, these teams having rally captains and stuff is kind of insignificant. It's really how many garrison captains and how strong they are that matters. And I mean, VW, right? As long as they have Farmer and maybe even Tiger in a tower, they can at least hold relatively well. When they're spread into a lot of towers, I'm not sure. I would say the same kind of goes for Azure, though it's more reliant on Fib, and I don't know how good Fib is going to hold against a powerhouse Legion like Jade. If they get multi-tower spread, this is actually really hard for side Legions here. I feel like they're kind of carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. That being said, I just wanted to scramble and talk about this. I do appreciate you guys for watching as always. If you guys have any insight to give me, please let me know. I do appreciate you guys, though. I hope you guys have a great day or night, though. And I will see you guys in the next video. And that is about it. And peace out.